Can't blame the guy for that. So when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to the local community college. Long story short, there came a point where I had to choose. I loved photography and I loved music, but music at that point won out. And then I went on to study jazz for my undergrad and then my master's degree. And then years later, I actually went back for a doctoral degree in music in classical music. So I did that part of it too. So I was 100% in. But all during that time, I always had my camera on me. I would take as many photography classes as I could. I shot for the school newspaper, I freelanced, and I worked in the industry all the way through. And so when I started my portrait business, it actually was born out of the pandemic because my other business, which I still have as well, is a music school. And so I opened that right out of college. And during the pandemic, as you know, everything shut down. And so I saw my business shut down and almost closed completely because everything was closed and we lost more than half our clients, and like we were just like stumbling along via Zoom. So and I always wanted to do it, and I had done a little bit of portraiture on the side. Like I would do it for friends and colleagues and some of my students. I would take headshots for them. And then I started doing it for, we started a little theater program at my school, so I would take headshots of those kids. So I kind of had a little bit of experience under my belt. But in 2020, it was really a do or die thing. I just had to do it. And like many people, I know this story is, everyone I talk to, it seems, has like a pandemic rebirth story. So it was
Yeah.
born out, right? It was
Yeah.
born out of the ashes of that for me. And I just had to, it was like, it couldn't not work. And I really started it from the depths of despair as a last ditch effort to try and make something out of my life and try and pay for my family and just do the things I needed to do. And that was about 5 years ago now, 4.5 or so years ago. And that's where it started. So, and I'm eternally grateful for it because I absolutely love it every day.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, it's really fascinating how parallel our backgrounds are. Okay, let's talk about lighting a
Okay.
little bit. Do you have a go-to lighting setup, or how do you normally do you start your session with a particular lighting setup? What's your sort of go-to thing to warm a new client up, for example?
So I don't have one that I ever exclusively start with. I kind of just look at the face and then that'll help me decide where I start when it comes to which kind of lighting. I do, however, have a go-to lighting that I call the hero lighting. And I did not name it that. My friend named it that. But it's basically the light that if you look at most of my portraits that I've done over the past year or so, maybe a little longer than that at this point, has this style of light. And actually, you can see even right behind me, I have a little bit of a streak of light going on my backdrop. So what I do in this lighting is generally I use a beauty dish for the key light, and then I'll use a background light like this, and I'll put like a streak of light against the backdrop, and I change the tones of that. So sometimes it's a cool white, sometimes it's a warmer yellowish light so that it looks almost like simulated sun streaking through a window. And then I will add a various amount of fill depending on what I want. But I do like in my portrait work, there's certain things that I do. And again, I think I'm glad that I didn't learn the right way, because a lot of things that I do are probably not conventional, and things that like some photographers they just can't even grasp with it, or they can't cope with it, I should say. It's like one thing I do is I shoot everything at f1.2. Like there's barely a time when I ever stop down my lens when I'm doing my portrait work. I love the more shallow the depth of field, the better. So I'll shoot portraits shallow, and with a 50 millimeter lens is the go-to lens that I use right now. So I'll shoot an entire portrait session with just a 50 millimeter lens. And I love the 50 millimeter lens because I can get close, and then most people don't realize that even if you get close with a 50 millimeter lens, which we consider sort of a standard focal length, it will distort a face. So if you put a 50 millimeter, like less than a foot away from someone, which I do all the time if I want to get like a really close up of their face, it's going to distort. It'll kind of flatten out the sides of the face a little bit, and it could widen the nose. But I love the look for that, and then it's very flattering for people who have, say, a wider kind of face. It's very flattering for different kinds of faces, or if you want to maybe put a little bit of a feeling of uncomfortability into the portrait, because it does distort a little bit. But that's kind of what I do. I'll use mainly 2 or 3 lights. And if I use 2 lights, I'm generally going to go for a smaller key light. So I don't like a big umbrella key light. And I'm talking more for portraiture, not really for like a more corporate style headshot. I'm talking more for like a portrait with a painted backdrop. But I'll go for a smaller key light, like a 22-inch beauty dish. I use the most common thing I use is an Angler 22-inch beauty dish, and I'll use it without any diffusion because I like the little bit of crunchiness, the hardness of it. Or I'll use even a smaller reflector as my key light, and really I'll get it close. So I get the lights really close, and I'm shooting continuous light as well, which is important because that allows me to shoot wide open. And I like the wide aperture combined with the continuous light. And then if I do like kind of the clothing sort of matching and making sense with the backdrop, it's going to look like a painterly portrait right in camera. Like you don't even have to, like people want to go and they want to like do a lot of heavy lifting in the editing room. I rather just have it like 99% done in camera, and then I tweak it just a little bit in post. But that's kind of those are the kind of common lightings I'm doing: a key fill and a background light. And sometimes I'll do the key with a fill without the background light. And the other thing that I like to do that's a big no-no from photographers is I will put my subject literally against the backdrop because I want those shadows that are cast of them all over the backdrop. Like that to me is so cool. I love that look. I love having all of those textures. It just adds so much drama and just texture to the image. So I purposely do things that I've been told I'm not supposed to do, but but I don't care. I'm just looking for an image that I think looks cool at the end of the day. So that's pretty much the way that I do it. And then I will move all about the light. So once I set up my light, one thing that I do often as well is I don't plant my feet. Like I see photographers, and I'll use a tripod sometimes as well, but I sometimes see them with their tripod, and there's only one angle and one pose that they can get the whole time because they don't move the tripod. So I'm taking it off the tripod all the time. I'm moving, like if I was taking my picture in this light right now, I'm going to go way to my left, go right in front of me, go way to the right. I'm going to shoot from higher. I'm going to shoot from lower. Because even if you just leave the light where it is, but you move yourself, you're going to get a totally different light out of it. So that's kind of how I do my portrait process in a nutshell, the tornado little nutshell for you.
What's for you? What's the advantage of continuous light over strobes?
Okay, so there's pluses and minuses. The big plus is that you just see what the light does immediately. So you're able to in real time know that the light is going to look beautiful, or that your client is not over or underexposed, or just that they're in the right spot so that the light is giving you, say you want, like, so a lot of times I'll go for like a sort of Rembrandt light on the face or somewhere in that neighborhood, because I feel like that's going to be the most flattering. But I want light in the eyes. I don't want I don't want, raccoon eyes, and I don't want weird shadows on the face. So you can see it all right away. The other advantage is that, as I mentioned, because you're shooting continuous, you can use any shutter speed. So I will shoot at 1.2, which is much harder to do with flash, since you can only use like a synchronization speed of 200 or so. And then if you try to use high speed sync, the flash really doesn't get in there the way you need it to. So I'm able to shoot wide open. And then if I need to use, say, 1,000 shutter speed or whatever, I'm able to do that. I also find that what I'll do is I'll keep the lights at a very low power and close. So one of the misconceptions people have about photography early on, which I know I was so confused by this early on, is that I would think that the closer you put the light to the person's face, the harder it's going to be. However, that is the opposite. It's actually true. The closer the light is to the face, you're going to get a softer light. And if you don't believe me, go outside at 12 p.m. on a sunny day. You have that little tiny light, millions of miles away, and it's very hard, and the shadows are really hard, right?
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.